It's when we receive it, we realize it. But it's always answered. So it's always up to us to be able to be receptive to that which we ask for. Because God will not do anything that we're not ready to receive. Because you see, it gave it at the very beginning of time. At the very beginning, it gave all that it had. And you're the living example of that which it gave. All of its creation is a living example. And so we are the demonstration, you see. We are the demonstration of its mighty idea. It had an idea. And we know how that creative process works. He had the idea. It was that thought. He had feelings about that thought. And then, lo and behold, there was this world that it created. All the contents of this world. And as trombone says, Wilton Johnson, after he did all that, he said, that's good. So we are by just at that creation, good. Created by God. We're already good. So we don't want to slip back into that not good enough phase. Not good enough stance. He declared it as good. And we're supposed to take that step, living in that goodness that it created around us, and experiencing the goodness that is ours. Not even having to ask for it. We just step into it because it's everywhere, evenly present. And just says, be. Be. Whatsoever you want to be. You don't have to be the accountant, you don't have to be this, you don't have to, whatsoever you decide, but just know it's good. God doesn't micromanage. It doesn't say, are you doing this, are you doing it? That's Santa Claus. God is greater. God did that creation. And so we are supposed to just keep walking in the space of the wholeness and the goodness, and knowing that it's ours already. We don't have to do anything for it. You see, that's what's called unconditional. We don't have to do anything. It doesn't love us because we love it. It loves us sometimes in spite of it. It doesn't even see the in spite of. It just knows when it created it was good. And that's all it has to see. That's all it can see. It can't act contrary to what it is. It is good, so it has to see good. It has to expect good. You see, the ultimate is already good. You see, the ultimate is already good. So it doesn't have to wait until the last chapter, you see. It knows it's already good. The end is the same as the beginning. Now what we do in between that sometimes follows it up is our doing. But it is declared long ago, at the moment of creation, that there's nothing that can be less than what I created. So I don't have to watch the in-between, I just know the outcome. And looking at you, I'm reminded that I'm here with a message. Globes of light, right? Globes of light. So the message and the question that's always been asked, when this journey that I've been on seemed as though it was ending. What have you learned? What are you learning? What's taking place? And in the first probably 4 months of this so far 7-month journey, my answer to what was the learning, what is happening, the answer to that is that I know at a deeper level, I'm understanding at a deeper level. My answer to that was that I also know what I don't know. Ooh. There are so many things we think we know. And we're just looking at the very surface of it. We don't know. And so that's why that word F-A-I-T-H was brought up. And so you have to walk by faith. Because you don't know. All things are revealed to you. And as we've said before, if everything was shown to us at once, we'd be like shards of glass. We couldn't stand it. We couldn't handle it. Because it's so magnificent. It's so magnificent. So that was my response. And I then said the prayer, because this came upon me as now all you know, very suddenly. Something that I hadn't expected, something that I hadn't had any real bells ringing or alarms going off. So I said, keep the teaching. Anything that is unlike the presence of God, and any patterns that I am carrying that I haven't identified, and or patterns that no longer serve my purpose, may they be dissolved with the penetrating point of power of God's love. And I don't know everything. I have to cast some of it someplace else so that I don't get stuck in the mire and the muck and wondering. So I did that prayer. I did those prayers and then asked for revelations. Reveal to me that which you want me to know. And interesting enough, books would come my way. Or intuitive message would come to me during this period. And one of the messages I received was that this was not a real emotional or physical experience. The experience was spiritual. Well, when I started unpacking that, I said, well, everything is spiritual. We're not human, we're spiritual. And so this is a spiritual journey, but it was deeper than that. The message itself was deeper than that. That this spiritual journey was in preparation for some work, was in preparation for me to be tuned into. There's some unfinished business. And so I started doing this picking apart. What haven't I done? Well, my goodness. The list, I stopped after a while. Because there are so many things that I haven't done. That maybe started and didn't finish. And so, that was something. And so I stayed with that for a while. You see, this whole journey has been on layers and layers and layers. Wonderful, revealing layers. But then on near the end of this journey, I'd say in August it was, Audrey Scott Williams and Karen came to town. If you remember that they were both here, and Audrey gave the Sunday night, we had the panel discussion, Audrey gave the sermon that Sunday, and I was back in my office waiting for them to finish up the message. And in my office, Rita Naylor, Sidney Naylor, and we were talking, and I said something like about what was taking place within me. We were talking about my healing. And I kept calling this healing of this area my wound, which I call it my wound. I had the wound back, I had all of this, and it was my wound. And Sidney said, "Why do you call it a wound?" And I stopped for a moment. And I said, I don't know, but the only reason I think I do is that I think of the men and the women who were at war. And some of them were wounded in war. And I guess I'm likening it to that. That's what I said. Now I'm going to ask you, the congregation, to be with me and suspend all judgment on the next things I say for the next few minutes. Because I want to take you back to 1995. In 1995, I had the opportunity of going to China with past President Eisenhower's People to People program. That led me to, which I wasn't even aware of, but I got an invitation to go to China with a group of women I had never met before. When we all got together, we didn't know how we were chosen. But we were there. And we were touring China. And I remember one of the tours took us to the Forbidden City. I've never been to China. But when I walked through the gates of China, it's changed, Forbidden City has changed a bit now. It is now a museum. But I walked through the gates and I began crying uncontrollably. Crying. The leaders of the program came up to me and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I don't know." I couldn't stop crying. And they, in their wisdom, left me to cry. And all of a sudden, on the grounds of this beautiful, so many acres, I saw rows and rows of soldiers in blue uniforms walking. Chinese soldiers walking. And step, step, step. And for that moment I thought, am I going out of my mind? They disappeared. They weren't there. And so I ventured to go up to the palace, the Imperial Palace. And it's beautiful. At that time you couldn't go through the palace. I guess now you can. But everybody who went up to look into the rooms were roped off. And I remember going up to the palace to look inside the room. And I knew everything that had taken place in all the rooms. And where the emperor was, where the children's room was, I knew these, intuitively something was happening. And I noticed that I kept thinking and seeing the color blue and gold, blue and gold. And I said to one of the guards, what is the significance of blue and gold? Because the men who were marching were in blues and had gold. And he said, these are our colors. If you look up above each room, you see the symbols in blue and gold. And then later on, I don't know if it was actually during the tour, we were taken to the terracotta warriors where that underground excavation took place in 71. This was 95. And they had just opened up pit 1. And that's where, underground, were these human sculptures of warriors who were sculpted out of the terracotta material, ground, and into form. And they were there, and this was done because of the emperor, the first emperor, wanted to have protection after he died. And these life-size figures had been sculpted out. I think now they've unearthed like 600 soldiers, and they have in other pits, they found the horses, life-size horses, and the chariots. It's beautiful. All out of terracotta era, I'll say. And as I looked at these forms, they too had a familiar ring to me. That was one experience. I tell you that because what happened that Sunday with Rita and Sydney, after I spoke of the warriors or the wounded, Rita, who had heard the story of China, said, "Wound the warriors. Do you remember when you shared with us that experience you had in China? Could some of this be that it was in a past life that she experienced this?"
Yes.
Well, I have never gone through a past life regression. I have never judged it, but I've never felt that anything but the here and now is what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. But what she said rang so true to me. And I thought, my, I wonder. So that next day I'm sitting at the kitchen table with Audrey and Karen. And I'm sharing the experience I had the day before with Sydney and Rita. And I said, whatever the conversation was, they said, "Have you ever had something like that happen?" I said, you know, interesting enough, I've been on 5 of the 7 continents, 14 different countries. And I've never really understood why I was in them, why I went them. Some of them were planned, but very few. It was something that happened that led me there. It was something that took place that all of a sudden I did go there. So maybe it has to do with those 14 countries. I don't know. I said, but I want to share one thing that took place that I do have a clear remembrance of. And I told them about 1988 when I was visiting my sister in Milwaukee. And I decided to do guided meditation and tape it. My sister had gone to work. I would never take a guided meditation before, but I decided I would do this. I had a tape recorder, you know, the sun was shining, and I would, yeah, why not? Now keep in mind, 1988 and 1995 were pre-ministerial days. I had just in 95 become a practitioner, but in 1988, I was searching. So meditation, even though I did it every now and then, it wasn't a part of me. So I did the guided meditation and just started free talking. And the free talking led me to Australia. And as I talked in the microphone, I painted this picture of we were wandering in the desert. No food, no water. There were several of us wandering, a large number, don't know how many. But we were dying because we couldn't find the water holes and we couldn't find the food. And there were dogs even by us where their ribs were showing because they too were dying. But I had a duty to do for them. And what I carried with me was something that looked like a stylus, called a stylus, now it was called a spear. A handheld spear. And it was my job to help people cross over by sticking them in the neck with the spear, so that they could go into the next land and in their human physical suffering. That was my role on this journey as I talked into this microphone onto the tape. And taping. After that taping was over, I went into my sister's bathroom and looked in the mirror, and there was an Aborigine looking back at me. It wasn't me. I held that experience from 1988, not forgetting it, having the tape of the experience that walked me through every step. And I kept trying to find the answers to that. And everyone who I met, I told them a bit about this wonderful, wonderful meditation. And finally, the World of Parliaments decided to have their meeting in Australia. And I said, that's where I'm going to find the answers. I'm going to Australia. And for those of you that you know, in 2009, now keep in mind this was in 1988. Now we're into 2009, and I'm still in questioning. And I decided I was going to try to find some answers. My brother in 2009 became ill. Royce became ill. And I, with all the thoughts of me going to Australia, I had to put that aside. And then Royce's illness ended with that. He made his transition. And someone, I don't know who it was, came up to me and said, well, are you going to Australia? I had totally forgotten about Australia. And I said, yes, I am. I'm going to Australia. And just like the other trips, the decision to go was made instantly, without question, without roadblocks or obstacles preventing me from going. And I went to Australia. I had visa, I had room, board, transportation, everything done within 2 weeks. And when I got to Australia, you gotta believe, I asked everyone who looked like an Aborigine if they knew anything about a land that was barren and had suffered. Of course, in the Parliament, there were several Aborigines, and so several of them looked at me like, this woman is crazy. She is totally crazy. The day before, the day of the last day of the Parliament for Religions meeting, they had a presenter. And And this presenter talked about Aborigines' beginnings. And he talked about their land. And he talked about the training that children had to take so that they could do the walkabout and be able to survive. And he talked about being able to dig into the sand and bury themselves so that they could stay cool in the day and then do their walk at night. And I said, that's the man I got to talk to. So after he finished speaking, I was among several who were waiting to talk with him, and I spoke with him. And I had gotten of course, my questions down to a 2-minute, elevator statement. So, have you ever heard of a place where there was a drought? I didn't tell him anything about my own meditation or anything. I just asked him. And he said the name of the place, and he said when it took place. See, after 1788, when there was colonization of Australia, prior to, of course, the Aborigines had lives. They lived, they were wonderful. And they had to know their history. After colonization, of course, it was just like with the Native Americans, they were made to feel less than. But this is what took place in whatever time it was at all. And of course, I was so thrilled that I was hearing validation of this experience I had. I didn't hold on to any of the messages he was saying. She said he was saying yes, yes, yes. And that's all I needed. So I was telling Audrey and Cameron about that. And Audrey said, in a very strange voice, we're sitting around the kitchen table. She said, what's your name? Now, all of you know, or some of you met Audrey, soft-spoken, and out of her mouth came this, what's your name? And I looked at her and simply said, like a little indignant, Sheila Pierce. And she repeated it and said, what is your name? I said, Sheila Walker Pierce. And then it was so Audrey came back in and she said, Walker, the walkabout. Pierce. You have to pierce their necks. She said, in Australia, Sheila means woman. I said, what you don't know, and maybe what some of you don't know, is that the blood clot that I had was in my jugular vein. And I said, yeah. Perhaps there is something from another lifetime that unfinished business is getting taken care of. Perhaps there is something that I have been missing, not because I've stayed in the now, but because I haven't opened myself up to know there's something that was before I came here. Now, I cannot grasp all of that in this setting. It's still perking within me. But when I look at the different countries I've been to, and I remember some of the experiences, Paris, France, of knowing exactly where I was at every moment in Paris. I had never been in Paris. So perhaps the countries I traveled to had significance. And so I really had to start doing something. I had to look at this thing called reincarnation. What were my feelings about it? Ernest Holmes didn't believe in the reincarnation that we know of now. You thought. Charles Fillmore did. You thought. Didn't he? Charles Fillmore said something that reincarnation is not a divine idea of God's. Because God made us imperishable. We are created to be imperishable. If you do scriptural reading, Methuselah lived how long? We say, oh, no. God made us imperishable. So what about reincarnation? Perhaps it's the soul's journey to complete some unfinished business. Perhaps that which is taking place is allowing us to just complete something that from the first, whenever that was, that we decided we could do it by ourselves. And so the outcome that we experienced wasn't the same outcome that the divine presence expected. No. Wasn't the same that the divine presence had planned. Because you see what happens? We go away from the plan. The plan is there. The plan has always been there. And we step outside the plan because we think our plan is the better plan. You see, because if we got that free will, that allowed us to be free to do everything we wanted to do. And so I kind of cut and tuck it in my mind of, not my will, dear God, but thy will be done. You got the plan. But every now and then, this human side says, this ego part of us says, we got a better idea. And so we play out our idea. And it unfolds in such a way that it doesn't lead us to that we want it to lead us to. And so when we make our transition, we're left with some unfinished business that we didn't clear up. Now, there's not much said about karma, debt. Some people say there is such a thing as karma debt and carry from past lives and bring it in. Others say no, there's no karma debt. Karma means that which has taken place, that you just have this feeling about how you carry your karma. But in this reincarnation, this part of us that has been here before, and we come back to learn from not only the past, but to use it in the present and the present. I'm still working with it. But when you ask me, what was this journey about? When those messages before I even had that insight was to clear up unfinished business. That was the message. And so what can I do with that now? How can I use it now? Because I'm still in the now moment. How can I use it? I look at all of those areas of life not only experience, but influence. Those areas of my own influence. And I stop and say, what isn't circled in that needs to be finished? And I need to complete. That will assist me in my soul's growth during this journey. What is it that's still laying dormant that needs to be cleared up? Who have I not allowed the love of God that flows through me to flow onto them? Who am I holding something against? Get it cleared up to be in that space. And that's whether you believe in reincarnation or not. But for me, there had to be a beginning before today. There had to be. I don't know what all took place before. But those 2 experiences, 3 experiences, and now I think 6 experiences that have taken place. They're just too familiar with me. You know, you just put nice spins on it, you know, deja vu. You've been there before. Wow, this looks so familiar, and you look so familiar. Oh my goodness, there's a familiarity about all of this. That's been there. So, yes, I know I don't know. But I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to open myself up just to learn. Because it's all directed. It's got its own energy. And if I'm living in the all good and knowing that God is all good, I know it's good energy. Yes. Because some of us can get into that womb level. If you believe that it's all God, and if you believe that the energy is all good, then you can't escape into that other level. There's a call for us to just continue to awaken. 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 And so you say, well, Christianity doesn't talk about it. Yes, it did. Before Emperor Constantine, he's the one who outlined any thought of talk of reincarnation in the Christian dogma. However, those who are Gnostics in Gnosticism, and that was one of the classes that we as New Thought students had to study. Of course, they believe in reincarnation. Hinduism, Buddhism. Yes, Buddhism begins, both begin. And say, you come back to clean up the karma, or clear off the karma, or to use the karma, that which you knew before. Australians talk about the spirit. And we talk about the rebirthing of some kind, going to another land. So I guess I'm standing before you now as I said, suspend all judgment. But possibly just think about it. Where did you begin? Was it just 70-some years ago? Or was it several lifetimes ago? Just be willing. Let's go to prayer. And so right now, I'm standing here. You're the one power, the one presence that I call God. Flows through me. Is ever ready to acknowledge me once I acknowledge it. And as I recognize that power and presence, I know that that power and presence is in and through me, flowing without hesitation. For it is love. And so I can't ask the love to flow to me. It is in me already. It's all around me. And since I know and believe that there's only one presence, one power, and since I know that I was created from that one power and presence, then I know that it is within me and ready to express itself through me once it gets the nod. And I bow to it. I bow to that ever-present power. I bow to it. I acknowledge it. And as it simply adores me, I honor and adore it. There's no hesitation from that presence. For it's as instant as I am. And all that comes through me is a divine gift of God. So in order for me to understand that which is taking place, I must allow myself to go up to a higher space of understanding. A greater expression of understanding other than using this finite mind of mine and staying on the surface. For there's much more beneath the surface of understanding than I'm allowing myself to see. So I have to go up higher to a higher frequency, a higher vibration to accept, acknowledge, and welcome. I must be willing to understand the greater things that are being laid out before me. Jesus said, "Thou can do greater things than I." For it knows that all of us are in this together. And as we experience the now presence that we are in, we're exposed to even more. We're invited to understand greater things. And so we boldly step forward. Because we know there's no separation. We know that presence is within us. And there's no spot where God is not. That allows us to have authority over most all things. Allows us to have authority over all things. And so that's the boldness with which we speak. Have dominion. And we boldly step forward into that space. Not taking over hierarchies, but the boldness of our spirit that leads and guides us. I'm so grateful. For once we have that boldness and experience, we are able to choose from that which is the infinite possibilities that are in the force. And they're all good. The infinite possibilities, because we do get to choose. We have the will of God and we can choose aright. Anything that seems to be out of sorts, we can turn the other cheek and change. Change the vision that we've been carrying on for so long of lack and limitation, of disease, of no longer progressing the way we want to. Change the vision that we are carrying about ourselves. We are made in the image and likeness of God. for us to be. And it hasn't changed its view of us. As we allow ourselves to become that imperishable body, we become the Christ consciousness that follows Buddhism. The Christ consciousness that allows the perfection of who we are to beam brightly. And we want for no thing. For God has given all things.
Already done! Already done! Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
So much to experience this, express it, and feel it, so to know it. We're so grateful. We're so thankful. For this more words can even express. We gave thanks. We say in unison.
And so it